Welcome to Coffee with Crystal. Grab a cup of coffee and join me for this quick tip. Okay, so if you write fiction, then you must have dialogue in your story. And everyone wants to have realistic dialogue. It draws the reader in and it makes your characters more believable. But how can you get more realistic dialogue? Well, here's my tip for you. Go somewhere in public and sit there and eavesdrop. I know, it sounds a little weird and maybe a little sketchy, but for writers, it's one of the best things you can do to create realistic dialogue. One place you could go is a restaurant. You can sit there and drink a cup of coffee or some tea or have a snack, an appetizer, and listen to the conversations around you. What are people saying? Another place you could go is the airport. An airport is a great place to go because there are so many different kinds of people there from all over the world traveling in one place, and you can sit in a chair and listen to people talk. And the good thing is you can move around. So maybe you sit somewhere for a half an hour and then you sit somewhere else in another half an hour. There's so many places you can go in an airport, or a train station would be very similar to an airport setting. Even the mall is a great place to go. And when you go to these places, then and you're sitting there and you're listening, I would suggest listening to the difference between how people talk. So for instance, if you're listening to a man and a woman talk, how does a woman talk differently than a man, right? Does the man use more full sentences or clip sentences? Are there words missing? Their inflation to their tone, things like that. Pay attention to those things, because then you can include those tips and what you're hearing in the dialogue in your books. In addition to men and women, also pay attention to how does a teenager talk versus a grown-up, or how does a grown-up talk, and yes, I have young kids, which is probably why I'm using the word grown-up instead of adult, but you know what I mean. How does an adult talk versus a elderly person? I mean, there's so many different ways that we all talk, and different pauses that we all make, and different ways that we end our sentences. So just pay attention to all of that. Really soak in the words, and don't just go to one place. Don't just listen to one conversation. Go multiple places. Maybe you split this up, or do this every so often. This is good even for the best of writers, just to go somewhere and sit and listen. Being a good listener is so important to being a good writer. And that's all I have for today. It's just a quick tip, but it is so important and so helpful. Just listen to dialogue. I would love to know if you take this advice and you go somewhere. Please put that in the comments below. Let me know where you went and what you learned, or if you have other tips for realistic dialogue. Also, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. Thanks so much for joining me for a cup of coffee today. Have a good one, and as always, happy writing.